Everyone, Chris here from Midwest Coaster Fans, bringing you breaking news. Apex Parks Group LLC has filed bankruptcy. Yes, Chapter 11 bankruptcy. We found out about this news last night. We wanted to get more details on certain things regarding this, so we wanted to get certain details on what kind of a bankruptcy it was. Obviously, they are backed by Sybaris Capital, and obviously Sybaris Capital has the opportunity to be the low bidder on this, and I'll explain it here in a second what kind of a bid process this is considered. But they are closed. Obviously, the other parks besides Indiana Beach and Fantasy Island are closed because of the coronavirus. And we knew this was probably coming due to them selling off assets at Fantasy Island and Indiana Beach and closing both parks to pay off their debts. And now we know that they are filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, and they are pulling themselves into a bidding process, and I'll explain that here in a second. The main investors are Edgewater Funds and another investing firm. A stalking horse bid is the initial bid of assets of a bankrupt company. The bankrupt company will choose an entity from a pool of bidders who will make the first bid on the firm's remaining assets. The stalking horse sets a low-end bidding bar so that the other bidders cannot underbid the purchase price. The stalking horse originates from a hunter, obviously, and basically they set the underbid, and whoever bids higher will get the assets. It's just to make sure that they don't have any bids below that price. And then what basically happens is that the company, if they win the bid, would be free of certain things because they're the first people to bid on it. And then this news article right here just explains the same thing that I already explained. This is just off of Yahoo. I got this off of Yahoo. It's from PR Newswire explaining what they are aimed at changing and restructuring in the company, and their ultimate goal, blah, 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 is to ensure that the company stays intact, and they'll be given the opportunity eventually again to operate at Apex Parks Group with the assets that they have currently. Now, this isn't going to under-deter or anything like this. Obviously, the sale of Indiana Beach, which is still in the process. We just don't know who the buyer is yet. But if a buyer comes forward and decides to buy that asset, which is Indiana Beach, that deal, from what I understand, will still be intact, which the county is offering a $3 million incentive to the company that buys Indiana Beach, and that will still remain intact. Obviously, Indiana Beach is one of the company's assets, and they would have to buy out, obviously, whoever the investment firms are that own the debt on there. And that's the thing right now, is that basically the company that buys Indiana Beach has to come in, and they also have to buy the debt up, and then they will own the park, and then, Apex could use that to pay off their debt as well. And it's a whole process. I'm not 100% familiar with how the whole bankruptcy restructuring process works. The only thing that I could tell you for sure is that Apex plans on operating the other parks as normal during this restructuring process. This is just a way for a lot of parks and a lot of businesses to restructure, get rid of its debt, and then form basically a new company or in a new fashion so that they're able to basically make sure that they're able to keep the company intact and basically ensure that everything doesn't go under. So that's just a restructuring, Chapter 11. They plan on paying their employees during this. They plan on paying vendors and supplies in a timely fashion. But here in a second, I'll explain to you. Well, actually, you know what? Down below in the description, there's going to be a link. And if you choose to, you can click on the link and see all the list of creditors that Apex has. There's a whole list of the things. I'm not going to name off all of them, but I could let you know right now that Store Capital owns over $1 million. They owe over $1 million in debt to Store Capital funding, and there's a bunch of listings of a bunch of other debts that they owe below that, to include they owe debts to the city that Fantasy Island was located in. And I imagine because Store Master Funding, or whatever the name of that company is, owns the assets, or they own certain parts of Indiana Beach, obviously part of that payoff would go towards that company. And it's just a whole list of things that happens underneath this. And we know that Six Flags did the same thing, from what I understand, when they filed for bankruptcy over a decade ago. and they are operating as a full-fledged company again. Obviously, they're a little more careful on their spending because they don't want to get too farther up themselves in debt. And this is kind of like what it does. It basically allows companies to come in, buy up the debt, then pay off the debt by selling off their assets, still remain a company. And then I think they're also given the opportunity little by little to buy the company back from whoever decides to take over their assets. But like I said, I don't know the full details because I'm not somebody who specializes in bankruptcies. But I can tell you that it is a restructuring bankruptcy and that Apex could come out of this still as a company. But I still believe that the sale of Indiana Beach is going to happen. So for those of you that think that it's not going to, it could still happen. This is just a restructuring. And I hope that Fantasy Island also gets the opportunity as well. I just want to see these two parks get out of the threshold of being owned by Apex and hopefully owned by somebody who's going to invest in both of the parks and take care of them the way that they were meant to be taken care of. I hope Apex the best of luck. I hope they are able to restructure and learn from their mistakes that they took place during all of this. And with that being said, this is Chris signing off for Midwest Coaster fans. I hope you enjoyed this breaking news. Have a great rest of your Friday. We'll have more happy news coming out in future videos for Midwest Coaster fans. Thanks again for watching. Have a great one.